Alright, YouTube, it's time for a new video about libertarianism. I'm going to cover a little bit about the LAX shooter and some other things that have been happening in the media and in the government lately that are slightly concerning. The first being that I'd like to point out this airport shooter at LAX who is being labeled as a self-radicalized individual who is called anti-government and so forth. There's something happening right now that I haven't seen before. You didn't see it under Bush because at the time we had just left the Clinton era. The Democrats were comforted by Clinton. They felt he was a good president. Obama hadn't taken office yet. So everyone was simply focused on how dumb the Republicans are. Right now, what you're seeing is that people are all saying, well, Obama's completely corrupt and dumb. He's no different than Bush. What people have started to come to the conclusion to, I know a lot of other people have, and I can vouch for knowing for sure that a lot of people have, is that both sides of the aisle are corrupt, lying, and have no clue what's going on or what they're doing. And a lot of people knew this to begin with. I started getting cynical about the two-party system some years ago. But the new things that are happening between the NSA and all of these other scandals, it really shakes your faith in the two-party system because what you're left with is seeing both parties as equally stupid, equally evil, essentially, literally evil, to the point where neither of them have respect for the Constitution, neither of them understand what our country is meant to represent, and more people are coming to this conclusion. They're starting to turn into, you could call it libertarianism. Some are more, anarchist and say, well, fuck all government. Some are more, communist or something. They're saying, well, we need to get the government out of our social lives and just have sort of like a syndicalism system or something, and a lot of them are going towards libertarianism and constitutionalism. And it's starting to bleed over into the media, and I can say just literally like 10 minutes ago, I was on CNN on an article about Eric Holder and his new statements about, oh, he's scared of a lone wolf, anti-government person conducting terrorism on our soil. And I made the comment that I'm not afraid of goofy terrorists. I'm afraid of the government. And I went further and said, well, look at it. Some terrorist group, they want to hurt us. They have limited means of doing so. They have a limited amount of money, a limited amount of technology. They certainly aren't going to get a hold of nuclear weapons. They don't have the capability of obtaining nuclear weapons. Despite what all of our governments may say, if a terrorist group ever unleashes a nuclear strike, the first thing I'll think is that somebody in the government fed them a nuclear weapon and it's a false flag. You can call me crazy all you want. I do not believe that any nuclear stockpile on Earth is managed by a country that is so inept that it would actually lose fissile material capable of being used in a warhead to a terrorist group. And on CNN, I made this comment, and it was the top comment, and then CNN deleted it. It wasn't against their terms of service. I wasn't swearing. I wasn't insulting anybody. I wasn't off topic. It clearly pertained to the Holder article because it dealt with the TSA and things like that. There wasn't any reason they should have deleted it, and they did. So then I went to the number 2 comment, made the same comment on there, and now it's the number 2 comment, I guess. They're starting to delete comments, and I've heard of this happening on CNN quite a bit lately, in the last few weeks especially. They've started to censor comments which show general disdain for the government, which show disdain for people on either side of the aisle, unless you are criticizing one side and not the other. If your comment's partisan, they have no problem with it. But as soon as you make a comment that the whole government is a pile of crap, they take it down. Because they're afraid right now. The left media and the right-wing media are both afraid that people will get tired of both political parties, realize the very real truth is that neither of them knows how to manage the country anymore. They're both hyped up on fear steroids because of 9/11 and because of Benghazi and because of all of these other things that have happened. They're terrified that the people will get tired of them mismanaging our finances, mismanaging our military and industrial system, mismanaging everything possible, and that people will vote for a third party that actually represents their views. Right now, we're kind of in a little bit of a revolution already because people's views have stopped going to the side and started going more towards limited government. Not limited as in, well, we should cut welfare and no more funding for abortions or any of the things the Republicans say. And nothing on the other side of, oh, we need to cut the military and we need to cut, this and that and cut this subsidy for oil like the Democrats say. People are simply saying, get the government out of our personal lives because we're uncomfortable with the way things are working. And clearly, this LAX shooter, I hate to say this, I hate to say something that I know will get me trolled and that I know will be unpopular with some people. He was partially justified in what he did. Certainly as justified as the government is whenever it kills people with drones overseas. It's killed American citizens overseas. Clearly a violation of the Constitution when they killed, I can't remember his name, but there was an American citizen over there operating in a terror cell and they just droned him. Well, you're not supposed to do that to American citizens. It's unconstitutional. He should have been captured and brought in for trial. If he got killed in a firefight when he had the chance to give himself up, that's different. But they simply blew him up with a drone. People are getting tired of this. They're getting tired of it because one of the reasons, and the government still hasn't wrapped its head around this, one of the reasons Obama got elected was because he said he would rein in the surveillance. He would rein in the militarism. He would rein in all these bad foreign policy decisions of the Bush years and put us on track to regroup with our allies and make at least a symbolic overture to the third world where all these terrorists are coming from. Because people said the reason these people are becoming radicals, and this is why terrorism exists, is because we acted first. Just like they're worried about self-radicalization of all these Americans, they're going to become revolutionaries and go blow things up. That wouldn't be happening if the government wasn't pissing off the entire population. To the point where there are a lot of people now who seem to have sympathy for shooters. They have sympathy for people who bomb things. As long as their main target, remember Chris Dorner, when he attacked the LAPD. They said, well, the LAPD is so corrupt, it no longer matters. The people holding power over states, over the federal government, over these various cities, over the military, over these agencies, are so corrupt, so out of line, and so not in keeping with our values, that it's almost a good thing when they die. I don't personally hold that view. I don't believe that we need this type of violence. But still, you can at least understand where these people are coming from. They feel like they have no other option. The TSA spends number one, it's acting unconstitutionally. Just because, oh, it's airplanes and they might get brought down into a building, and remember the 3,000 that died on 9/11, just because of that does not invalidate the fact that the TSA still is using unreasonable search and seizure. They are. They don't have a warrant to search you. And some people say, well, you voluntarily submit to these searches because you're using an airplane. That's nonsense. I don't see that in the Constitution. They sit there and they fiddle with little kids all day. I can't even believe the number of pedophiles that have probably joined the TSA. One of the reasons we've got less priests now is because they realize that if they join the TSA, they could grope kids and it would be completely legal. So I can't say, well, he did a great thing. He shot some pigs. I can say I can at least understand why he disliked the TSA so much. I can understand why he felt like he had no other option, because right now the government is acting without our permission. Almost everything the government's been doing since 9/11 has been without the permission of the public, based solely on fear. I've got a suggestion that I think would help everybody. We need to adopt a Russian system of foreign relations. That is to say this: end the surveillance state, because right now it's getting us in hot water with our allies and with the population. Do away with all that and simply have a pro-military stance instead, because right now what we've got is largely an anti-militaristic sentiment, which is forcing the government, because it's paranoid constantly about terrorists, to, rather than attack these people on their own soil in retribution for American lives lost, which is what we always did in the past and what every nation has done in the past, it gives you a casus belli to go over there and kill people. And nobody has a problem with that. But instead, we're not doing that anymore. We're simply using surveillance on the entire population. It costs a lot more than a very short conflict, which involves firing a few missiles just to say, we told you we would attack you. Let's adopt a Russian system. Let's adopt a Teddy Roosevelt-style system. No more of the domestic surveillance, no more of none of that nonsense. It violates the Constitution anyway. Get rid of all of it. Get rid of the NSA entirely. Get rid of the TSA groping people constantly at airports and Port Authority on, the buses and so forth. Get rid of all of that and instead simply tell all the people around the world, we're not going to attack you. But if people within your country are attacking us and you, the government of that nation, are not doing anything about it, we will invade. We will kill you all. We will kill all the terrorists. We will level your cities and leave. And there's not a goddamn thing any other country on earth can do because they'd get destroyed too if they tried to stop us. That's what we need to do. Bring back pro-military sentiment. Yeah, I'm not a warmonger. I don't like... Iraq was ridiculous. We had no reason to attack Iraq. Libya, it was ridiculous that we ever interfered there. Syria, it's ridiculous that we ever even thought about interfering in Syria. Afghanistan, you can sort of make, you say, well, it kind of made sense because we thought Osama was there now. He was in Pakistan. Everybody knew that he was in Pakistan. We just didn't want to fuck with Pakistan because we were trying to put him in our sphere of influence, pull him away from the Eastern world. Get rid of all that nonsense. Just say, we'll attack you and destroy everything if you piss us off too much, so keep your people in check. And we'll keep our people in check too. And we'll stop spying on all of your leaders, like Merkel and, the Prime Minister of Spain and so forth, pissing everyone off in the world. But yeah, right now, the media is censoring those who have anti-government views. And the government's even gone so far as to say, well, these people are radicals. Of course they're radicals. Can you blame them? All they see is the government fucking up over and over again. It's like the government has no idea what it's doing. You'd think if you get people together and you give them a multi-trillion-dollar a year budget, you give them free reign over the largest military on Earth, the largest economy on Earth, the largest almost everything on Earth, the most productive land and the most apple pie and grandma in her rocking chair. The eagle soars through the skies and sheds a single tear on a flower called virtue. All of this mumbo jumbo that they always parrot, America the brave, America the beautiful, America the great, we're the world power, we're the empire, we're everything, we're the new Rome, we can do anything, went to the moon, go to Mars, you can't stop us. Well, if all of that is true, then number one, how are a handful of terrorists going to do anything to us? And number two, you'd think these people running the show would have at least some idea what they're doing. And some idea, preferentially, about what the Constitution means, why our nation was formed. And again, let me clue people in for those that don't know. During the American Revolution, they were not fighting a foreign power. They were fighting their own government because the British government didn't instantly cease to run the country simply because they signed the Declaration of Independence. They didn't care about a piece of paper. To them, it was just a joke. They still said, oh, you're still British to us. And then it forced them to fight to make their point that they no longer wanted to be British. Well, if you want to get rid of the tyrannical government right now, there are only two ways to do that, nonviolent and violent. People should start protesting more. People should be out in the streets, say, get rid of all this nonsense. The NSA wastes our time and our money and it's making us less safe than we were before. So why do we even have it? Or at least reform these blanket surveillance programs, which, let's face it, they didn't stop the Boston bombings. They don't stop anything. I've heard a dozen different numbers on how many terrorist attacks it supposedly stopped. I still haven't seen evidence of even one attack being stopped. So what's the point? Why does it require why does it need secret courts to issue all of these blanket warrants? If they're unintrusive and they're constitutional and they're lawful and nobody should have a problem with them, why not have a regular court issue them so that we can see exactly what they're actually monitoring? But no one in the government wants to do anything like that. Then you've got the fact that the two parties right now are essentially one party. Look at Feinstein's an excellent example. I'll give Feinstein credit for coming out against the NSA spying on foreign leaders. But she never had a problem with it using blanket surveillance on the entire population plus tens of millions of people overseas, which shows she has no, cat, you're having a sneezing spell, which shows that, you all right? My goodness. Which shows that she has no breadth of the Constitution. She has no understanding of it. Because she doesn't have a problem with a program that's clearly unconstitutional, but she has a problem with spying on foreign leaders, which has been done time and time again. It makes no sense. Self-radicalization is the new buzzword. If you're anti-government, then you must be a radical and you're going to take a gun and shoot people and you're going to blow yourself up and you're terrible, unpatriotic, lower than dirt, you're a terrorist. No, you're not. Most people in this country no longer like the government. When they talk about radicals, they're talking about most of the population. Most people at this point are either apathetic and don't care which party's in power because they realize both parties are screwy, so why bother to vote? There's half your population right there, and a large chunk of the other half honestly hates the government. I fall into that group. That doesn't make me a violent radical. It doesn't mean I'm going to go shoot an airport or blow things up. It just means I'm tired of the way things are because I'm sitting back here. I'm trying to sort out my life. I'm trying to do what I need to do, go to work or, I write books for work at the moment, get an education, and we're supposed to, stay out of debt, build a family, and then you've got your fatherhood card here, and you've got your, oh, well, too bad, we're in a recession, you can't get a job. The government's the one that mismanaged things. People aren't responsible for what the government's done because the government has done almost the opposite of what people want it to do for over a decade now. That's why we need to protest more. You can even do it online. You can circulate a petition. That's how we killed SOPA. We killed SOPA with an online petition. We could do the same thing for the NSA. People so far haven't done that, but you see on CNN and elsewhere, I've heard of NBC, Fox doesn't allow comments anymore, which is screwy in itself. You go to any of these news sites, they're censoring people because they're terrified right now. They think both parties are going to fall by the wayside. For the first time since the country was founded almost, the Democratic Party could lose power forever. The Republican Party, the party of Abraham Lincoln, we ended slavery and we were the party of the little guy, and now we're the party of moralists and corporations. They could fall by the wayside too. What we need is a third-party option or a return to no parties and just say fuck it all because none of these people have a clue what they're doing. And then meanwhile, the media is busy covering the so-called right-wing media and the so-called left-wing media are both covering for their bought-out candidates, all of which are co-opted by the same corporations. Goldman Sachs funded Romney's campaign. They funded Obama's campaign too. Whoever won, they still got a cut of the winnings. They still got a little bit of an edge in on their competition to talk to whoever happened to be in power and say, well, we need you to sign such and such a bill. Oh, tell Joe Schmo in Congress he needs to author such and such. I promise it'll be good for the nation. Never is, but that's what they promise anyway. And the thing is, you have to assume that people like Bush or Obama or Romney or McCain or Palin or Bachmann or Gore or any of these other people, they either, clearly, one of three things is true. They're either tyrannical and they know what they're doing, they're simply violating the law because they want more power, or they don't know what they're doing and they're completely inept, or they don't know what they're doing, they mean well, but they're being purposely misled by other people in the government, or some combination of the three. Right now, it looks more like we've got a combination because we see the NSA right now could, in theory, spy on any politician in the country. It could theoretically then use that information to blackball them into doing whatever they wanted. You could call them the most powerful, the leader of the NSA is theoretically the most powerful person on earth right now, rather than Obama. He would be just a figurehead. All the NSA dude has to do is say, well, here's Obama's emails. He's talking about this, and that's clearly unlawful. He smoked this drug 20 years ago. Look at this email he sent to his kids. That doesn't look very presidential. We'll put it into a file as insurance. And then he walks up to Obama and says, well, I got all these great files on you. You better do what I say or else I'll release them to the public. And you'll be impeached so fast you won't even be able to fight back. And the NSA's been there and had these programs in place since the Bush years, which would then make you wonder why Clinton seemed to be the last president who actually acted of his own volition, at least partially. Of course, he was still bought off by the same corporations. So when they talk about the LAX shooter or any of these other people, and they call them self-radicalized terrorists, you have to at least stop and appreciate why they did what they did. They didn't simply act randomly. They didn't suddenly go nutty. They didn't suddenly have a brain spasm and randomly decide to shoot people. These were thought out beforehand. This is the sign that something is clearly wrong, because we haven't had, in our history, we haven't had that many people, except in times of extreme stress, who act with a revolutionary sentiment. Most people are quite gregarious, and unless things are severely going wrong, they are not violent. That's why in areas that are under stress, wherever they happen to be in the world, you see more violence. People act violent because they're under that stress. People won't self-radicalize if the government would do its damn job. And we wouldn't have all of these terrorists overseas if we had done our job in the first place. We ousted the secular government of Iran. We ousted the secular government of Syria, or tried to. We ousted the secular government of Libya. We ousted the secular government of Egypt. We ousted the secular government of Iraq. We ousted the secular government of Afghanistan, put the Taliban in charge. Then we took the Taliban back out, put the secular government back in charge. We have no clue what we're doing over there. It's a huge clusterfuck. That's why terrorism emerged. These people, they say one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Well, they're still acting in a morally dubious nature. They're still mostly killing civilians in many cases. But you can at least, you have to understand why. You can't govern unless you can get at the root of why things happen. Otherwise, you're purely being stupid. You have no clue what's going on. You're just flinging shit at the wall and hoping it sticks there. So CNN needs to get on the boat of no longer deleting comments that they happen not to like, which happens to be a large number of them from what I can see, because the top comments on at least 5 stories in the last week have been deleted mysteriously. All of them expressed libertarian sentiment. I wonder why that happened. They were all on topic. None of them were abusive. And MSNBC and NBC and all these other news groups, they do the same thing. That should show you right there, they are terrified right now. And the government seems to be a little bit on edge too. I think they're worried about Obama getting impeached and all the incumbents getting voted out. Oh no, we might have fair government for a change. They're just scared about that. That's about all. Peace out.